Have you ever thought about how powerful Professor Minerva McGonagall really was? What if the movies left out some of the most incredible details about her life? In today's video, you will discover secrets about McGonagall's strength, past, and the moments that never made it to the screen. The Harry Potter series is full of unforgettable characters, but even among them, one stands out: strict, brilliant, and endlessly loyal. Minerva McGonagall wasn't just a professor, she was a force to be reckoned with. Students feared her, yet respected her deeply. Her colleagues trusted her judgment, and when the moment called for it, she became a warrior. But how did she rise to such prominence? What made her one of the most skilled witches of her time? And what moments from her story were left out of the films? Minerva McGonagall was born in Scotland to a Muggle priest and a witch. Her mother hid her magic for years, fearing her husband's reaction. When the truth came out, it created a rift in the family. They still loved each other, but trust was never the same. Young Minerva grew up watching her mother struggle between two worlds, longing for the magical life she left behind, while her father wrestled with the idea that his wife was, in his eyes, a witch. At Hogwarts, McGonagall immediately drew attention. The Sorting Hat took an unusually long time deciding between Gryffindor and Ravenclaw. In the end, her bravery won out. She became one of Gryffindor's brightest students, excelling in transfiguration and earning a reputation as a strict but fair leader. Her personal life was marked by heartbreak. After graduating, she fell deeply in love with a Muggle man. When he proposed, she almost said yes. But she knew that marriage would mean giving up her magical ambitions. She made the painful choice to walk away, leaving behind love for a future in the wizarding world. McGonagall's first job was at the Ministry of Magic, where she quickly gained recognition. Her superior, Elphinstone Urquhart, admired her talent, but London bored her. She longed for Hogwarts. When Dumbledore offered her a teaching position, she accepted immediately. Years later, Elphinstone proposed to her. She refused. Her heart still belonged to the Muggle man she had left behind. Only much later, after years of loneliness, did she finally say yes. Their happiness was short-lived. Just 3 years into their marriage, Elphinstone died from a rare plant's venom. It was a devastating loss, one she never fully recovered from. As a professor, McGonagall was both respected and feared. She was a strict disciplinarian, but she cared deeply for her students. She upheld the rules like her father, yet possessed the sharp wit and talent of her mother. When Voldemort rose to power, she played a crucial role in resisting him. Though she never officially joined the Order of the Phoenix, she worked closely with Aurors, gathering intelligence on Death Eater movements. During the reign of Dolores Umbridge, McGonagall was one of the few who dared to stand up to her. In one legendary moment, Umbridge interrupted her lesson, trying to assert dominance. Without hesitation, McGonagall shut her down with a sharp remark, leaving the entire class in stunned silence. And then came the Battle of Hogwarts. McGonagall led the school's defense, casting powerful enchantments to shield the castle. She single-handedly animated Hogwarts' stone guardians, commanding them to fight. In the chaos of the final battle, she even faced Voldemort himself. She couldn't defeat him, but she didn't back down either. After the war, she took her rightful place as Hogwarts headmistress, serving until old age. But just how powerful was she? McGonagall was one of the greatest transfiguration masters, second only to Dumbledore. She was an animagus, capable of transforming into a cat at will. She used this ability to spy on Death Eaters. Her Patronus was also a cat, and she could summon multiple Patronuses at once, something few wizards could do. She was skilled in combat magic. During an attempt to arrest Hagrid, 4 Aurors attacked her at once, They only managed to bring her down by sheer numbers. Many believed that in a fair duel, none of them could have bested her. Her most impressive feat, activating Hogwarts' legendary protection spells, a task so advanced it was typically reserved for headmasters. McGonagall wasn't just a professor, she was a legend, a fierce protector of Hogwarts, a woman who stood against darkness time and time again. Her story is one of strength, sacrifice, and an unwavering sense of justice. And yet, despite everything she did, the movies only scratched the surface of who she really was. Minerva McGonagall was a woman of unshakable discipline. She rarely showed emotion. Students at Hogwarts respected her, some feared her, but few truly knew her. She walked the stone corridors with the grace of a predator, her robes billowing behind her like a storm cloud. Her gaze was sharp, her words precise. But behind the stern expression and clipped voice, was there a secret? A part of her life she never shared? There were whispers in the halls. Older students exchanged glances when her name was mentioned. Some said she had once been in love but never spoke of it. Others believed she had lost something, someone, before she came to Hogwarts. She wasn't always this way, a former student from the 1950s once said in hushed tones. There was fire in her eyes once, a light that burned differently. One night in her office, Minerva sat at her desk, quill poised over parchment. The candlelight flickered, casting shadows that danced along the walls. On the edge of her desk, a single photograph lay face down. No one had ever seen it. No one had dared ask about it. If they had, they would have noticed the corners were worn, as if touched too many times. She had loved once, deeply, desperately. His name was Dougal McGregor, a Muggle. They met when she was young, just out of Hogwarts, full of dreams and ambition. He was kind, strong, and utterly unaware of the world she truly belonged to. She had intended to tell him. She had rehearsed the words 1,000 times. But the night before, she planned to reveal her secret. She received the letter from the ministry. An offer? A career in magical law enforcement. A future she had always wanted. She stood at the crossroads of her life. Stay, marry Dougal, and live as a Muggle's wife. Or leave and embrace her destiny. The choice was agony. She knew what she had to do. She walked away. She never looked back. But that didn't mean she forgot. Years later, she heard he had married someone else. The news reached her like an arrow to the chest. That night, in the dim light of her chambers, she transformed. The sleek, silver tabby cat curled upon her windowsill wasn't just an animagus in that moment. It was a woman hiding from her pain. During the First Wizarding War, McGonagall fought with ferocity. Some said she was relentless. The younger members of the Order of the Phoenix had never seen her hesitate in battle, but Albus Dumbledore knew better. He had seen the way her hands trembled ever so slightly after a duel. He had noticed the way she lingered near the entrance of the castle late at night, staring into the darkness. "Minerva, do not let ghosts dictate your path," he once told her. Her lips had pressed into a thin line. "Some ghosts refuse to stay buried," she had whispered in reply. And then there was the boy, the one she protected more fiercely than the others. A young, awkward student with unruly black hair. He had the same last name as a former student she once knew, Elphinstone Urquhart. No one had made the connection, but she had. Elphinstone had been the only man she had ever considered giving her heart to after Dougal. He had been a fellow professor, a gentle soul who understood her silences. He had asked her to marry him. She had hesitated, but eventually she said yes. They had shared quiet evenings by the fireplace, stolen moments of laughter in between classes. But fate was cruel, a freak accident, a venomous tentacular bite. His death was swift, unexpected. After that, she never spoke of love again. In the halls of Hogwarts, she was the strict, unwavering professor. But in the dead of night, when the castle was silent, she allowed herself to remember. She would sit in her office, a cup of tea cooling beside her, and let the past creep in. "Minerva, you don't always have to be strong," Pomona Sprout once said, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. McGonagall had merely nodded, her face unreadable. But that night, when she returned to her chambers, she allowed herself to weep. There were stories among the staff about the time she single-handedly faced 5 Death Eaters in the Battle of Hogwarts, about the way she had shielded Neville Longbottom with her own body when a curse flew toward him. Severus Snape, a man who prided himself on knowing people's weaknesses, had once tried to read her, to uncover what lay beneath the iron will. But even he had found nothing but walls. "You guard yourself too well, Minerva," he had murmured once. "What are you afraid of?" "Nothing," she had said. But it was a lie. She feared attachment. She feared loss. She had loved and lost too many times. After the war, when peace had finally settled over the castle, McGonagall took a walk through the grounds. She stopped by the Black Lake, where the water mirrored the sky. She closed her eyes and let the wind touch her face. Somewhere, in another life, in another version of reality, maybe she had stayed. Maybe she had been a wife, a mother. But this was her path, and she would walk it until the end. If students had ever seen her in that moment, they might have noticed something strange. A flicker of sadness in her eyes, a ghost of a smile that never quite